Well, there's certainly a lot going on, and we're going to discuss certain things that are going on here in Indianapolis, also in the state of Indiana, and as well as nationally. But there's so much going on, but we really want to take some time to uh, help the community understand I'll say where we're at when it comes to education. There's a lot of things that are going on here when in regards to education that parents need to be made aware of, that families need to be made aware of, and certainly the community at large needs to be aware of. And we've got a guest on tonight that's going to join us to help us along the lines of that conversation. We're going to have Dr. Jim Shurk. He's an advocate, one who is spent a lifelong time in his studies in regards to urban education. So he's going to be with us on tonight and share, I'll say, some data that we should be alarmed with, but also what we can do moving forward. And we invite you to be part of the conversation. You can call into the radio station 317-480-1310. I want to bring in our President Green. How you doing this evening?
Grandma Alexander, Dr. Shook, I'm glad to be with each of you and all of our listeners on today and Facebook followers as well. We've got a great conversation in store. Dr. Short is an expert in this urban education area.
All right, I'm asking you would, Mr. President, if you could go ahead and open us up in prayer and we'll get started.
Dear Lord, we come before you as humble as we know how. Lord, we thank you for this day. Thank you for continuing to watch over us and keep us. We thank you for our time of sharing. Lord God, you might receive all the glory and all the praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Well, thanks, Mr. President. Want to welcome our guest on tonight, Dr. Shurk. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. The world is not, but I am.
Well, I tell you, it's going to be folks like us that have to make the world a little bit better.
That's true.
Well, let's go ahead and we'll dive into our conversation on tonight. Once again, if you're listening, feel free to call in 317-480-1310. Or if you're watching on Facebook Live as we're streaming, you can also put a comment or a question in our live feed, our chat, and we'll try to get to those also. But I want to start our conversation on tonight. Last week, there was a gathering at the Olivet Missionary Baptist Church on the northwest side of town in which President Green was our moderator, if you will, for the event tied around education. We had Dr. Shurk on the panel. Dr. Gwen Kelly had a representative from ISTA, from the state the state union, teachers union. They were there. Had Senator Fatty Kodor, and it was I'll say, a very eye-opening conversation. Some things that were shared, some statistics that you shared on last week, Dr. Shurk, and Dr. Green. You moderated it and helped the conversation flow. So, Dr. Green, I want to start with you. As you and Dr. Moore from Baptist Ministers Alliance, came together and brought this group together. What were you hoping, I would say, to maybe get out of it? And then, were you pleased with what was shared?
Yes. Let me start off with Dr. Moore really wanted to have like a state of education for Indiana as a result of recent legislative changes and also providing updates. This wasn't the first time we've done this. And we always go to Dr. Shurk. He's working in the area of urban education. He's training teachers and really apprised of what's going on, not just locally, but what's working nationally. So it felt like it's very important to have him in there. And, mentioned Senator Kodora, who worked on the education committee on the state side. So was very familiar with the law changes and things that have happened. So, it was important that we have the conversation because the goal was to make sure this information is available and it was recorded, streamed on Facebook. So, the last time I checked, over 300 people had watched it to show,
Wow.
to hear what's happening in terms of education because you don't know. I mean, you really need to hear from some experts about what's happening, people that were really there in the legislative process to say, here's what this looks like, here's what they're trying to accomplish. And one of the strange things is I saw yet today, because Senator Gadora talked about this new board, this 9-member board will become the board for the entire state. And so there's an article in the IBJ about it's being suggested by Stanford Children that this board be the board for the entire state. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is exactly what Senator Cadora was talking about. I think that was in Mary Indy. Because they were talking about this, and you're like, okay, this is what Senator Cadora is talking about. So, not having, they call it an autonomous board. So rather than the public electing the board members, this board that's there will supersede, quote unquote, the IPS board. And Senator Cadora spent time talking about that. So, it's the right time to be having these discussions because these changes have a huge impact on our children. And, I always go to Dr. Short, who's astute and studious and has the background information on what in the world's going on here and what's working other places.
Well, as Dr. Shurk is coming in, let me help folks understand. So what President Green is speaking on is this newly formed board that was put in place here in the last legislative session that just began holding their meetings. It's called the Indianapolis Local Education Alliance, I believe, ALEA. And so they are in place now. And what's being proposed is that they now oversee the local school board, including the IPS, instead of the stakeholders that are there within the district actually having the voice and the say so. And Dr. Shirk, you were there on the panel as well, and you shared, some reasons why control is all about also dollars.
That's definitely true. The legislature essentially did cuts to public schooling. And instead, the money's going into these voucher programs that you can be making $1 million a year and you get the vouchers, and that helps pay for the private school you want to send your children to. But to me, this has a national level, a state level, and a local level. Nationally, we see what's going on. I saw today or yesterday that the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education, is no longer going to look at racial disparities except for disparities that white people feel. They want the whole operation to focus on the prejudice against white people. So, that's just one of many things that's coming out of Trump and the federals that, to me, is, from banned books on race to, what we're experiencing here locally, that's all racism. This whole MAGA movement is basically racist. They're trying to roll back everything that's happened since from before the civil rights movement. They're trying to roll it all back, decrease voting rights, all kinds of things. So they're applying their racism to education just like they're applying it to a lot of other areas. At the state level, Governor Braun and Republicans are forcing the same kind of things. They're making changes like close all DEI endeavors, make sure school districts aren't doing any DEI work. To me, this is basic racism again. It's and I would say black people are the main target, and there's obviously a lot of within the MAGA movement anti-black thinking. So this carries over into the local level. The committee you were just talking about, the board that you were just talking about, Reverend Alexander, that whole targeting of IPS and any school and any district in which the number of children of color was the majority got targeted. That's racism. That is racism. They're bringing a blatant racism to our local level here. And I have very little doubt that Stand for Children has a strong play in this, that they helped get the legislature to do this. To me, because they were starting to run into opposition on the school board, and all their money was still not giving them complete control. So to me, they're involved in racism too.
Well, let's pause there for a second there, because you said quite a bit there, and pointed out that this is all, racist, and it's all targeted, against students and families and people of color. Just on today, it was reported that, President Trump made a comment that the Smithsonian focuses too much on how bad slavery was. And I think it's critical for us to tie some things together, President Green, as we have this discussion, because it's important for us to know why slavery was so bad, because a whole group generation of people started out at such a low level, not having anything, starting from, just being, freed, if you will, some not even knowing they were free, trying to start, not having, wealth, not having, where we've got, long money from our families, but literally starting from nothing. And the oppression, even after they were freed, not having equal access, not having, being able to have education, doctors, employment. We can keep the list going on and on and on. That's why we need to understand how bad slavery was, because it's not like, well, once folks were free, now everything's on equal footing. They still had a lot that they had to recover from.
Exactly, Reverend Alexander. I mean, that's documented by numerous people. I mean, on all sides.
And that's what, Dr. Shirk, you spent a lot of your studies just that, in showing the disparities, when it comes to especially families of color in education.
And that was one of my main messages of the presentation you were talking about earlier, is when you see racial disparities in education, banking, employment, home ownership, family wealth, the law, across all those areas, then, we have a very serious racism problem. And a lot of the assumptions of white people are the same ones that came out of slavery that you were talking about, like that black people aren't as smart, or there's still a lot of people believe they're not of the same human species, that black men are violent, all of these kind of assumptions that were made and developed during slavery, they're alive and well with us.
And that's where they're trying to rewrite the history, Reverend Alexander. I mean, when we look at the book bannings, all of this, what President Trump is doing, he wants to rewrite history. He doesn't want history record it as it really happened. He wants to be able to skew it and then teach it differently or have it taught differently, which is why he's attacking uh, our institutions of higher learning, while they're saying, okay, you can't have this and you can't have that. So we're seeing it because he's laying the foundation in is there will be a group of children growing up, if we're not careful, that will believe that slavery wasn't bad because it want to be exposed to any of the truth.
And then that brings us back, right here to where we're at in Indiana when we have a governor that's kind of following, that same mindset, same policies, putting us in exactly the same predicament in which the legislators here are doing all that they can so that they can hold our children back, so that they can, instead of when we had programs that were put in place to help bring those children up, whether it be pre-K, whether it be the vouchers, some of the items that were put in place to help those students catch up to speed, achieve. Now that's all being taken away from those students, and it's giving to families really of wealth.
Exactly. I mean, it's all. What we cannot do is see these things in isolation. We must see them collectively together. That's how they're accomplishing the mission. Everything's being done with this intent. It is racist to the core. It is to rewrite history. It is to set black and brown people behind. At least keep them all in lower paying jobs, even if you have a job. That's the plan.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I don't know if I made it clear before, but racial disparities in any part of our society, including education, are solely the result of racism. When you see achievement data in the newspaper and there's a disparity between white scores and black scores, that's created by racism. And we have a lot of social science research that proves that that's true. A lot of people like to say black students don't do as well because their parents' attitude, or because they're in a low-income neighborhood, or because black culture is not very education-oriented, which is not true. All of that goes back to the racism of those. When you see those figures and you see the difference, think in your mind, that's the racism effect. That's not the kids, it's not their parents, it's not their culture, it's not their neighborhood. We have good research doing that, like Dr. Russ Skiba, was retired from Bloomington recently. He's done a lot of careful research showing that when it comes down to the end, after we've looked at all these other explanations, it's the racism that's the cause of this. I mean, that is just a blunt fact, and people of color can participate in racism. They can support racist things, but instead, we need to be very clear as to what the problem is, so then we can focus on it and try to make some change.
Well, families for sure are going to lose money. They're going to lose resources and funding. Kind of share, the disparities in that, because that's one of the things also, Mr. President, that Senator Quador spoke on also when he was talking about the amount of money that now has actually just changed hands pretty much over a legislative session.
Well, you can add Medicaid and the cuts on that to that, I mean, this is an effort to push the black population backward for decades. This is a full-on, full-bore effort to reduce black people and further elevate white people. It's not some complicated situation. It's actually a fairly simple situation. Like another thing we've seen recently is Trump is putting Confederate statues back up all over the country, as if that's part of a good heritage for our country. It's just, there's an endless stream from the White House and from Braun and from the Republican legislature pushing these different laws and policies that are really racist at their base. And we need to understand that. We need to not fall for the trickery of complexity.
And it played out by just last weekend. You had Nazis marching around the circle.
Mm.
You know, I mean, that so realizing it is clearly happening. And I mean, I've been trying to recently say, okay, because a lot of times people want to blame the student and the parent, but we're not blaming the system. And the system is to blame because it's a racist system that is letting our children down. The easy way out is I blame this kid, and I'm gonna punish them if they don't pass this I read in the third grade. Or I'm saying it's the parents' fault. But in reality, we have a system that is flawed, that system that is racist, and we have to call that system out. And as a result, as Dr. Stewart said, you can have black people participating in this system. So that doesn't exempt them from being part of the problem because they're part of this system. Because they've chosen to say, okay, I'm going to be in this system. And the system is racist.
Well, we're getting ready to talk about that, just that. What is the system? And here's what, there's some things that our listening audience really needs to know, especially if you have young students getting ready to go to school. We're going to share some of those system items you really need to be aware of because they're going to affect little Johnny and little Susie. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can call in. We have Dr. James Stewart, Stewart with us. So he's joining us on tonight, and he's sharing the conversation with us. Feel free to call in to the radio station. We're going to go to our break, but you can call in. That number is 317-480-1310, or you can also comment on our Facebook page. Once again, that number is 317-480-1310. You're listening to the Concerned Clergy Radio Show on Praise AM 1310, 95.1 FM Indy's Inspiration Station.
Indianapolis, get ready for one of the biggest HBCU football showdowns in the country. Saturday, September 27th, the 41st annual
covering what y'all want covered. Am I covering what y'all want covered?
Miles College Golden Bears versus Morgan State University Bears, battling for brag and rights, glory, and classic history. It's more than a game. It's the culture, the energy, the tradition. Feel the thunder of the marching band. Hear the halftime battle of the bands. Get your tickets now and be a part of this legendary HBCU celebration. Visit CircleCityClassic.com for all the details. The 41st annual Circle City Classic, Miles College versus Morgan State University, Saturday, September 27th at Lucas Oil Stadium. Be there when the Classic comes alive with Praise AM 1310, 95.1 FM, Indy's Inspiration Station.
Let's pray. Oh, dear God, creator of all, I come to you today in gratitude and in need of your guidance and protection. Please clear away all laziness, procrastination, and negativity from my mind and heart. Change my attitude of complacency. Clear up my confusion and fill my spirit with confidence and determination. Remove all fear. When the weight of life becomes heavy, please remind me that my challenge is a lot lighter than that of a multitude of my brothers and sisters. Instill in me identification of those who are of a like mind and a commitment to the will of God. If someone is not operating in my best interest, please, dear God, reveal to me the corrective exit strategy. Make my days productive, my nights restful, and the efforts of my life meaningful. Please bless and direct me, guide and protect me, now and forevermore. Amen. Ah, that's the sound of someone who's misplaced
Debit card.
their debit card. not the gas pump, or the checkout counter, or the roof of your car. Now, if he has the Chase mobile app, he can use card lock.
Wait, I just locked my card.
Yep, just a few tippy taps on his phone, and that sound, that's peace of mind from Chase.
Chase Mobile is available for small mobile phones. That's a new originated from Chase Mortgage Bank and AT&T. Agnes was in deep trouble with the IRS.
I owed the IRS a lot.
She found out about Optima Tax Relief.
They guaranteed me that they were going to help me out the best that they can, and they did.
Optima stopped the IRS.
Optima Tax took care of everything.
Are you in deep trouble with the IRS? You might want to listen to Agnes.
I would refer Optima Tax Relief to anyone.
Call Optima right now for your free consultation. Call 800-569-4435. 800-569-4435. Optima Tax Relief. For details, visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Listen to Medically Speaking every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on Friday, AM 1310 95.1. Indian Inspiration Station. Brought to you by the Marion County Department of Health. You've been listening to the weekly town hall meeting, brought to you by the Concerned Clergy.
Welcome back to the Concerned Clergy Radio Show. We are having just some slight technical difficulties, but all's going to be well. We've got Dr. James Shirk. He's with us on tonight, and he's been sharing some information in regards to his urban education studies and a forum that was held on last week in which our president helped moderate, President Pastor David W. Green Sr. So we've been talking about that as well as just trying to help the community understand here's what we're dealing with when it comes to the education of our children. We really haven't had a chance to get into, the charter school aspect and all that is going on. There's so much that you need to be aware of. But something simple, I'll say, because President Green talked about the systems before we went to commercial break. And Mr. President, that system now has us to where they have taken away funding resources for pre-K programs, CCDF, vouchers. They are taking away funding. If you look at, Medicaid, Medicare, when it comes to even some of the health, when it comes to some of our young students, and they've also implemented from legislative standpoint where if you don't pass the standardized test for third grade, then you're automatically going to be held back. So we're getting ready to come into a crisis just from that perspective, because think about this. Pre-K, 4, 5, maybe even 6 years old. Now you're telling me, okay, roughly, 8 years old, maybe 9. If I don't pass the test, I'm held back. So you're only giving me, just a couple, 2 or 3 years, maybe to even catch up, and you haven't helped me at least catch up when I first get into class. I'm set up for failure from the very beginning. And parents, you need to understand that, because you have to find a way to make sure that your child, your student somehow is getting some early education.
Yeah, without a doubt. The system has said we don't have money to fund CCDF in the sense that you got to be poor even to get it. They're not even passing out CCDF vouchers in 2025. The director for FSSA has recently put out that, hey, he's not giving out any CCDF vouchers for 2025 and doesn't plan to. And they're going to revisit in 2026. So there are going to be no new people getting on CCDF. So that ain't going to happen this year, and most likely not in 2026. So you have to already be on CCDF, and you got to stay on CCDF and not lose that voucher. So you better follow the renewal process. So follow that. We're saying we don't have money to fund it at that end, but we got money to give the vouchers for somebody who's making $1 million, who's going to a private school. So on one end, we can't fund people who are near the poverty line, slightly over the poverty line. We can't fund them, Dr. Shirk, but we can fund people who are going to private schools, etc. We can give them a voucher. Something about that math is certainly astray. That's why I talk about the system. Reverend Alexander. So that system says we're going to make it very difficult on Black, brown, poor people to get into education. So these children, many of which won't get there to their kindergarten or first grade, but they got to be able to read and pass this standardized test by third grade. So they got a very short window. And we're talking about kids who may not have never been in a structured environment, that, they just ran around at home, went to the kitchen when they wanted to. They didn't have anything structured. They didn't come learning phonics or ABCs or 1, 2, 3 or colors or even know how to hold a pencil. But we're going to get them in kindergarten or first grade, and you're going to try to do all that, get them reading on level with people who means who had their children in preschools and etc. It's going to create a bigger divide, and it's the system. Because on one side, you say at the bottom end, if you will, we don't have the money, but on the top end, we're going to give money and vouchers to anybody, regardless of how much money they make. So we do have money. We just chose not to spend it this way. So we're going to reward the rich and let them have more access, but we're going to take the poor and say, no, we're going to make it more difficult, and it's going to be harder. I mean, and then we're going to blame the teacher, right? And if they don't pass the test, we're going to either blame the parent, the student, or in some cases, the teacher. Those people are not involved for this. They didn't make this decision. I guarantee if you talk to those groups, the teachers would say, I'd rather have a student who's been exposed to pre-K, that had these things. So when I get them in kindergarten or first grade, they already know red, white, and blue, and black, and gray. They know some things, and then we can build from that base, not start with, they don't even know how to hold a pencil. We end up blaming the people. The system does. They flip the script. You're blaming people that shouldn't be to blame. And I'm tired. I mean, and I understand everybody's got a role. I'm not trying to escape people for their accountability. The parents have a role, etc. But the system is failing our young people. It's failing the community, and it's racist at the core. Because it's not, rich people ain't suffering. That is not who's suffering. But the system is failing our children, Dr. Shorrock, in my mind, because they're set up for failure. And then we're just going to try to blame somebody. We're going to say this parent didn't do a good job, or this student is not able to learn, or this teacher didn't do a good job. Man, these teachers are going to start out behind the 8 ball. In the system that we have set up, that teacher's sitting up behind the 8 ball. Then we wonder, why do teachers leave the profession? Who would want to be a first grade or second grade teacher or a third grade teacher, and you're inheriting this and saying, catch up? You got 20 students in here that probably didn't go to nobody's preschool or anything, and you're expected to get them on grade level. I mean, that's a whole lot of pressure, Reverend Alexander. That's going to be hard to do.
Well,
how we're setting the system up.
Well, and Dr. Shorrock also, statistics will show that if you hold a young student back, that the chances increase for them to eventually drop out of school at some point.
That's true.
And then what does that lead itself to, Dr. Shorrock, if you have a young person that now is not even going to anybody's school?
Well, they're then not going to have an education. They're going to have trouble getting jobs. They're going to have to take all those low-paying jobs, McDonald's, Walmart, pick up the trash, all of those kinds of jobs. Our system was already always redistributing more money to those at the upper end. It was already doing that. But now they're trying to accelerate it even more, to take away even more and make life harder for people of color, so that they can have more money and more control.
Well, Dr. Shorrock, he just kind of put a explanation point right there. This is really what it's all about, controlling money. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can call into the radio station at number 317-480-1310. We do have to go to our final commercial break for the evening, but you are invited to be part of the conversation. Once again, we have Dr. Jim Shurek, who's joined Mr. President and myself, and we're talking about education right now and the inequities, what's going on here in Indiana, especially what you need to know and need to be aware of. You feel free, once again, to call in 317-480-1310. You're listening to the Concerned Clergy Radio Show on Praise AM 1310, 95.1 FM, Indy's Inspiration Station.
Get ready, Indy. It's time for family, food, and fun at the 4th Annual Black Autism Support Society Family Fun Day this Saturday from 12 to 3 p.m. at Camp Sertoma, 2316 South German Church Road. Bring the whole family for free barbecue, bounce houses, a community resource fair, raffle prizes, and more. Plus, a special appearance from Rowdy, the Indianapolis Indians mascot. It's an afternoon of fellowship and fun, sponsored by their community partners. Don't miss the Black Autism Support Society Family Fun Day this Saturday from 12 to 3 p.m.
Contact Tax Relief Helpers for details and restrictions.
Attention, anyone that owes money to the IRS. Every day, your unpaid tax debt gets bigger and bigger from daily interest. The longer you wait, the more you will end up paying. If you owe $10,000 or more, now is the time to settle your debt before the IRS takes aggressive action, like taking your wages or property. A special toll-free number has been established so you can stop penalty fees, avoid liens, levies, or other hostile measures by the IRS. Call Tax Relief Helpers right now.
I got behind on my taxes and owed $48,000. I called and they got my bill lowered to just $3,500.
I owed $87,000 in taxes and it was scary. I got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
If you owe money to the IRS, don't wait another day. Your tax debt gets bigger and bigger from daily interest. Call right now before the IRS enforces liens, levies, or other aggressive measures. The call and consult are absolutely free. Call now.
Call 800-720-3380. 800-720-3380. That's 800-720-3380.
Save big on everything for your appliance upgrade when you shop at Menards. You need reliable and energy-efficient appliances to conquer the day. Menards is your one-stop shop with the largest in-stock appliance selection ready to take home today. Check out our top appliance brands, including KitchenAid, Whirlpool, Maytag, Amana, and Criterion. Save big money on all appliances at Menards, and check out our weekly flyer on Menards.com for all the great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
If you owe the IRS, here's a question. Would you rather deal with IRS liens, wage garnishments, and asset seizures on your own, while interest on your unpaid taxes compounds daily, or have an experienced team of tax professionals helping you put an end to that? If you want option 2, the experts at Optima Tax Relief are here, ready to help you. Their tax attorneys and licensed professionals step in front of the IRS on your behalf, fighting to put your tax debts to rest. Specializing in taxpayer assistance programs offered by the IRS, their award-winning team has resolved over $1 billion in tax debts for their clients. So, would you rather keep fighting the IRS on your own, or have Optima by your side helping you? If taxes are the problem, let Optima help you with the answers. Call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-569-4435. 800-569-4435. 800-569-4435.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Welcome back to the Concerned Clergy Radio Show. I'm Reverend Tony Alexander. I'm joined by our president, Pastor David W. Green Sr., and we have Dr. James Joseph Shurek. He's joined us on tonight as well from IU, and he's been sharing some good information and just helping us, and he's, really keep hitting home this point, the fact that what's going on in education is certainly a racist attack. And we need to understand that. We have in our chat where Lori is just kind of she also said what you said, Mr. President, that we have where they're taking from the poor and giving to the rich. And that this is coming, from the top down, from a national level. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Dr. Shurek, help folks understand, because, right before our break, we were really, just kind of diving in what the domino effect could be, just starting from something as simple as, we're taking away resources for pre-K.
Well, I would say one of the, I'm not sure this is answering your question, but one of the main points I would make is the level of achievement success that IPS and our local charter schools, their level of success is a scandal, a racist scandal. I mean, we have several schools in which less than 10% are passing that state exam, which means that 90% are not passing both of the state exams. That's huge, and yet they want to drive it down lower.
And we got a comment in the chat, speaking about some of the conditions that some of these children are living in, and that's certainly a factor, and it's something that we can't control, cannot be controlled, and that's why they really need stability when they go to school, Mr. President. That's why they need to be able to have some stability, because we understand. We have to be real as a society and say we understand the plight of our students, of our children, where they're at, and here is what we're going to do to help them. We can't live with them, but we can put things in place that can certainly assist them and help them.
For me, that's my definition of equity, Reverend Alexander. What we're practicing right now is equality. So we want to give the same amount to every student across the state of Indiana, when what we need is equity. Because some students, because of their environment, need more than some other student who doesn't need that because of their environment. So if they're in a wealthy environment and can afford to go to a private school, have a personal nanny, and do this, they don't need money, taxpayer dollars, in my opinion, that could go to this other student that we want to ensure their success, who didn't have that. There's somebody who's struggling with, the single mom who's struggling to say, I got to pay my rent, and I'm trying to pay my rent and keep my lights on. But yet that child shouldn't suffer. That child should still have an opportunity to learn and grow. We shouldn't go and punish that child right now and say, okay, we're going to stick it to that child because your mama's over there struggling. This is about, for me, that's what equity looks like. This is where we say we're going to take and invest so that they can be successful. I think I'm a Head Start product, so I'm thankful for Head Start. My parents didn't have, private money to send me somewhere. So, should I have been punished because of that? Or did I, let's at least give the kid a chance and go to Head Start and see if he can turn out right. Those things matter.
Absolutely. And, when you look at, somebody put it in our chat, the curfew issues and what's going on downtown, and a lot of that being centered around African American kids. But let's be real. Here it is. You're not even giving them a chance. You're taking away, and if you're not in favor for them getting the resources, why are you in favor of the wealthy giving the resources? Make that math for me. Why are you, why would you say, well, they don't need it, they don't deserve it, they're in this condition, but it's okay to give it to somebody else, and not only just give them something, you give them a whole lot more. Not only that, Dr. Shirk, if I recall, you're giving a lot of these like charter schools and some of these parents who say we're going to send our students to charters. They said they didn't need the money to begin with. That's what I recall.
That's true.
And now they're taking the money.
They're being greedy.
Exactly. So what do we do from here, Dr. Shirk? What does how does, from your experience, how does a parent, knowing here's some of the walls, the roadblocks that I'm dealing with, what's the best way, a parent can say, here, is what I can do?
Join the Concerned Clergy. It's one of the best anti-racist activist organizations in the city.
That
I'm
part.
sure Pastor Green could arrange a less than full price for you to be a member if you're low income. The other thing I would say is there is one or two parent groups that are working on all of this that are active in the city. And I would also point out that Gail Cosby, who's a board member, was a board member before. She got a doctorate with us, and then she's a board member again. I would connect with her. She is strongly committed to anti-racist activity in IPS. So there would be three recommendations. But we, just like the civil rights movement, we have to organize. We have to work on this. We have to work on the system. We can't sit at home. And what I say to people is, whatever you're doing, up at 10%, increase it somewhat. Whatever you're doing, move it up to a somewhat higher level, because the only way we'll get out of this is organizing as a people to have a humane society. This is not a humane society.
Mr. President, Lori put in the chat, speaking about the money piece, that there's enough money in Indiana. We have been operating under a surplus for years, and they have decided to not invest in those who need to be invested into. We've got, comments in the chat about the early ages of your kid's life is your responsibility. Well, fine. Well, why are you giving the money to the folks that have the money? Where is it where we're doing the same for everyone? Or where is it where we're recognizing where someone has more of a need? We're not doing either one of those, Mr. President.
Well, I think that in the end, people go to talking about public safety when you got to start with education. If we're not going to educate children, we're not going to invest in children, and we do have the money to invest in them. We do have a surplus. It's been argued by many for a long time. We could do fully funded pre-K tomorrow if we wanted to. If they choose not to do it. It's not that we don't have the dollars to do it. We could do it. If you do not educate our children, what do you think they're going to be doing when they're older? They know that 16-year-old knows if he or she can read or not. They know that there's no way they're getting a job at Lilly. They can't even read the application. So they're going to be doing things that we're going to say, well, where's that at? And somebody needs to control them. You're not going to be able to do that. Ain't going to work that way. They're going to do whatever is the thing they can do, which is going to be some type of illegal activity. When you readily make guns available and people utilize drugs, etc., that's what's going to happen. That's reality. So if we want to curb that, to me, it goes back to, are we willing to educate children and give them an opportunity to succeed? Now, will everybody take advantage of it? No, but a lot more will. And if you go and say, I'm not giving you the opportunity, or I'm making it difficult on you because of the system, well, then you're going to get more people on the other side that you're looking at like, why are they doing that? And then we have to remember, because again, you can't see things in a silo. You got to remember, where is Indianapolis on the eviction court? Right at the top in all the country. All this goes together. Rents are up in Indianapolis like never before, but minimum wage hasn't gone up. So when you put the squeeze on people, and AES wants a rate increase as we're speaking, then they got the same amount of dollars that they got spent, then they get forced into instability. Whether they're moving around, that means they're changing schools. And although this goes together, you cannot see it in a silo. If you see it in a silo, you'll think, well, just blame one person. When the reality is, it's the system. All these things are connected. They will not go and address bad landlords. They will not address raising minimum wage. They do stuff on the other end, like we talked about with CCDF, and we do these things with vouchers and take from the poor and give to the rich. That's all part of one big system. And when you see that, it's easy to explain why these other things over here that you see is negative. But we shouldn't just blame that person or blame that parent, because the system has walked them into that situation. There's going to be a lot more, quote unquote, people in it, because the system is driving those people to that position.
A racist system.
A racist system, yes.
Mhm.
A racist system driving is creating that. They're not trying to get rid of it. They're trying to create it.
This is a full-on onslaught against black people. Even though black people don't have, a fair portion of the resources, they want to make it even worse. They want to go back before the civil rights movement. I think they'd be happy with Jim Crow. And a lot of what they're doing, although it's dressed up differently, it starts reminding me of echoes of the KKK in Indianapolis. This is the same thing. It's just a different version of the KKK. They've taken over government just like the KKK did. We're in an emergency. And if we don't fight, it's going to get worse.
And that goes to, as Dr. Shurik just mentioned, Mr. President, what we just saw this past weekend. They're marching with their own authority. And there needs to be, folks that even stand up against that as well, which I know you're prepared to do.
Exactly. I mean, this coming Sunday at 3:00, those who can join us in marching against that, because that hate that is extremely divisive should not be something that we support or embrace here in Indianapolis. And the reason that we're coming together to march is to say, hey, wait a minute. This is because if not, it's going to get bigger. It's going to get out of hand. I would hate to see some young person who doesn't know how to interact with this type of group and something come out crazy. And so those are the things that in this season that Dr. Shurik said, we got to up at 10%. We got to up at 10% at least, at a minimum, because this thing is coming and it's the whole system. It is not a silo issue. And if you look at the system, you'll be like, oh, this is what's going on here. Because they want you to go blame. Can we just blame this person, or can we just blame,
create negative conditions for people and then blame those people for the response to the condition.
Exactly. That's exactly what they're doing. I mean, because you can't, people won't say, well, pull yourself up by your own bootstrap, but you're assuming they got bootstraps. Just take away the bootstraps. You ain't got bootstraps. Now, and you got a group of people over here who are saying, well, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Well, they don't have bootstraps to pull themselves up because the system took the bootstraps and they're making sure they don't get bootstraps.
And they're not telling everybody else to do the same thing. They're giving resources to other folks. I want us to just make sure we highlight that. It's not that they don't have the resources. They have chosen to put them in somebody else's pocket.
Yes.
There's plenty of money in this state that we could have universal pre-K, we could have childcare, we could have all kinds of social supports for people. And the social science research is those supports work, that people actually move up. And so, I go back to think about where and how the civil rights movement started. It was in small rural communities where black people could be killed or their land taken away from them just because a white person wanted to do it. And, that kind of spirit is what we're seeing again. You know, what we're seeing again is an effort to devastate the black community, push them into even worse circumstances. This is not a money problem. There's huge money in Indiana, and we could have a fair taxing system, and we could fund enough to make all of our citizens have sufficient housing, sufficient food, a decent job, a good school to go to. All of that's possible. But the greed and racism in the leadership of the system is working against that.
And, you know, I want to highlight this comment in the chat because Ramon puts in the chat, you know, he didn't have the resources, but he worked 2 jobs, 2.5 jobs for 30 years to make it happen. And that's exactly what they want you to do, Ramon. They don't want you to be able to live on an income like other folks where you can enjoy your life, where you can enjoy vacations, where you can send your children to school, where you can save for your children's education, where you can have a nice retirement. They don't want that for you, Ramon. What they want is for you to do just that. They want you to work till your nails fall off your fingertips. That's the whole plan. And everybody ain't in favor of that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Shirk.
No, that's okay. I would say that at 2.5 jobs, they're hoping to push you to 3. I mean, they're trying to take more. They don't have enough. I mean, they've got more money than they know what to do with, and they still want more.
He's going to need health care. Exactly. We're at the top of our hour. I do want to, you know, let everyone know, though, we really need to be concerned about this. We have dollars that are going to wealthy families that are being taken out of the mouths of our students. Regardless of what you think about if they deserve it, why does somebody else deserve it and our children don't? That we have to grapple with. So, Mr. President, once again, mention what's going on this Sunday at 3:00.
This Sunday, there's going to be a march around the circle just to push back on the hate that was with the Nazis and what they did where they covered up their faces on this past Saturday. You know, so feel free to join us 3:00 this Sunday.
All right.
At the Monument Circle?
Monument Circle.
Monument Circle. Dr. Stewart, you got any last words? Thank you for joining us on tonight.
Well, I really appreciate you all asking me to join you in this, because there's no issue that's more important than this.
Absolutely. Our children are our future.
Horrible. This is horrible.
Thank you for your work and all that you're doing. We also want to thank our listening audience. Mr. President, thank you for hanging out the entire hour. Hopefully we'll get a chance. We'll be with you on next week. We'll give you an update on the March for Sunday, but you are welcome to join us. So feel free to come out and join us once again, 3:00 downtown Indianapolis. Thank you all. Have a great evening and be blessed.
You've been listening to the weekly town hall meeting.